As if the topic of firearms wasn't controversial enough, adding kids into the conversation makes it even more complicated. And of course, for good reason. When it comes to talking about kids and firearms, it should all come down to one thing: safety. In this episode, we'll cover the safety measures parents should take when bringing a firearm into the home. And I'll answer the question of how young is too young to begin firearm training. You won't want to miss the range because I'm hanging out with two very special guests. My name is Paige Rue, and this is Reloaded. Every day, parents are faced with decisions that affect their child's life, such as, should a mother bottle feed or breastfeed? How independent should a child be? And when is a teenager responsible enough to drive? Any loving parent just wants the best. Having firearms in the home is no exception. So many parents ask me whether they should expose their kid to firearms or if they should keep them a secret. It's kind of like the out of sight, out of mind mentality. If they keep their kid from knowing there's a gun in the house, then maybe they have a better chance of protecting them from what they see in the media. But if you take away the fear and curiosity of firearms, maybe they will know what to do if they come across one outside of the home. Regardless of which decision you make, you as the parent just want to know that that choice will protect your child. And as a firearm instructor, I've realized this could be a difficult decision, and the media's focus on gun violence, tragedies, and teen suicides does not make it any easier. My opinion? A, take personal responsibility for your gun. And B, remove the curiosity. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Removing the curiosity and secrecy of firearms from your kid is key, but proper safety begins and ends with you, the parent, being responsible with your firearm. Think about all the dangers a child is exposed to in a home already. There are toxic chemicals, dangerous kitchen utensils, hot stoves and ovens, staircases, and vehicles. Kids can even choke on toys. Heck, you have to worry about them choking on Tide Pods now. Think about how you would approach these potentially dangerous items. You can't get rid of all the cleaning supplies. You can't avoid turning on the stove. And there's no way you can ban Legos from your kids. Instead, you teach them how to stay safe around these items, and they know that the parent supervision is needed for things like a stove or vehicle. Firearms are the same. Personal responsibility is rule number one before bringing a firearm into the home. Remember, you are the firearm owner. You are the parent. And the fifth universal gun rule is maintaining control of firearms at all times. This means that a child should never be able to access the gun unless you are present. They should not know the combination or have access to a key that would open up a safe. Additionally, when you're buying a firearm, make sure your budget includes a safe. It could be something as simple as this. And there are safes that are even $25. And if you own a gun, you need something that helps you maintain control of it at all times. You may just assume your kid doesn't know there's a firearm in the house, but they're curious little munchkins and they probably do. Either way, they will know mom and dad are hiding something in the house and they'll go looking for it, or they'll come across it unsupervised. Neither scenario is safe. To make things even more complicated, you may not know the mental state of your child. Yes, even as a parent. With school online, kids being isolated at home, cyberbullying, and the struggles young adults deal with, your responsibility as a parent is to make sure that they only have access to this piece of equipment when you are in supervision of it. So keep the firearm under control, but then speak about them in a way that isn't scary. When you're introducing your kid to firearms, start as a fun activity that you can do as a family. A firearm is a tool within the household and an object used for sport, sort of like baseball. I'm sure you have fond memories of playing catch as a kid, and I have extremely fond memories of going to the range with my dad. So firearms can be used as sport to create memories, but only when used safely. When I went to the range, I didn't touch any firearms unless my dad was around instructing me to do so. And I knew that as I got older and more mature, he'd reward me with more firearm responsibilities. And you may be wondering, well, how do I even begin to introduce my kid to firearms and talk about it? Take my personal experience as an example. I have 4 siblings, and each of them grew up with firearms in the home because our dad was a police officer and now owns a gun range. All of us were made aware of firearms at a young age, and it was kind of hard not to be when he'd be cleaning his guns on our kitchen table. We were always allowed to look and ask questions when he had any guns out, and we knew that we'd be able to handle them once we were old enough. What this did was normalize the firearm as part of our household, something we learned to respect instead of wondering about to the point of needing to touch. My dad used his instincts as a parent and his knowledge of firearm safety to decide when each of us was mature enough to go shooting with him. My older brother and I fired our first gun with supervision at 4 years old. My sisters didn't fire their guns until they were about 6, and my youngest brother was 9.5 when he fired a gun for the first time. Why? Because we're all different people with different maturity levels. Sometimes a child is ready and sometimes they aren't, and that's okay. They will never know when they're ready, but you as a parent will. Lastly, when you're discussing firearms with your children, emphasize the idea of personal responsibility. Yes, you have to practice it to keep your child safe, but you must also pass along the same responsibility to them. I mentioned that firearms are a tool for creating family experiences, but they are never a toy, even if they look like one. Back in July, the media went crazy over this. Culper Precision is a company that specializes in customizing firearms, and it's all legal and normal to customize. But personally, I have my own rose gold, camo pink, and engraved customizations on some of my guns. Your Second Amendment is a right, and so is your personal expression. Anyway, someone from Culper Precision customized a gun with Legos and called it a Block 19 and then posted about it. It was created for fun, and as a former kid who enjoyed Legos, I think it looked kind of cool. But of course, the media went wild. Lego even sent a cease and desist and is suing Culper Precision, and Glock made a public announcement stating how they were never involved with the Block 19 and don't endorse customizations on Glock firearms to look like toys. Culper Precision's response was basically that they assume a customer is responsible as a gun owner. It really does come down to practicing personal responsibility and then instilling that in your child so they can grow up to also be responsible gun owners. So as you begin to have conversations with your children, remind them that firearms can be fun, not scary. But they are fun only when supervised and used safely, and stress that only object that looks like it could be a firearm, whether it's a Nerf gun, water gun, or Lego gun, should be treated as if it were real. If a child even thinks that something is a gun, they need to know that they should tell you. Gun safety within the home starts with the parents. And speaking of, I have 2 very special guests joining me on the range, coming up next on Reloaded. Gun safety will always be a factor, but when kids are involved, it means so much more. To help me emphasize just how crucial safety is, I brought along the best person that I know to explain how parents should teach their children about firearms. Let's head out to the range and meet him. All right, so since I've been talking about firearms responsibilities with parents and how to safely involve your kids, joining me today is the owner of Shooters World, the man who taught me how to shoot, my dad, Phil Rue. So what was it like raising all of us kids? There's 5 of us. So what was it like raising all 5 of us around firearms?
What did we go through?
Yeah, what did you go through?
What did we have to endure? Yeah. So having 5 kids and deciding when the right time is to get you guys into firearms. All of you are different. All of you, are different. We're different. You and your brother kind of came in about the same time, age-wise. I was in law enforcement. You guys always saw me in uniform. Coming home with a gun on my side. What is that? So it was more of when I kind of thought you guys were mentally ready and when you were interested in wanting to learn. That's an important part, I think, for a lot of parents, is not so much when you think they're ready, but when the kids are actually ready.
How did other parents react to you having so many firearms in the home, or us being around firearms?
You could always tell to what level of background the parent had with firearms. Were they educated by the media, or did they actually grow up on a farm or somewhere where everybody hunted or fired handguns and long guns for sport? So you could always tell, your mom did daycare out of the home. And so, yeah, we had to have the firearms locked up, and we had, luckily at the time, the technology behind easy access hand safes had changed so that you could actually have a nice, inexpensive hand safe that was easy to access. So when I'd come home from work, from the police department, it went into the hand safe, and that's where it stayed. And the parents that drop their kids off every day were perfectly comfortable with that.
What would you say to parents about kids' mental health? And even if you feel like you trust them, what do you do, and how do you stay on top of your kids' mental health with firearms in the home?
If you were in high school and you had 5 girlfriends come over, I don't know where those 5 girlfriends' minds are at. I just don't. So what I would tell parents, and what I tell parents on the sales floor, get your kids to 18, you can get them out of the house. As long as you have other people coming into the home, you have to have a means to lock these firearms up.
As a parent, what is the best way to involve your kids in firearms or getting them to the range for the first time?
Well, one thing, and the reason I bought Shooters World, was to provide a safe shooting environment. So this is the first time you're taking your kids shooting. Obviously, you come to an indoor shooting range like Shooters World. One, we're going to have everything you need for the eye and ear protection. That's absolutely critical. You have to start there. You have to make sure that that part is protected. Your ears are protected. They're going to have a more enjoyable experience when they hit the range. So after that, one, we've got 220 rentals. So depending on how old the child is and how big the child is, because in that 8 to 12-year-old range, I mean, kids, you can have 2 8-year-olds and they're completely different sizes. So having the gun selection that we have, you can take that new shooter and have them feel different handguns and find a 22 or a handgun that you want the child to shoot that actually fits their hand. So we have this huge selection. But what's nice is once you get your child into that stall, that is your home for the duration of your shooting period. And you can work with your kid, and it's a safe environment. The targets are easily retrievable. So once you set up, you're there for as long as your kid wants to shoot, versus that going to the desert, hoping for the best, windy, rainy, and it's distracting. A lot of parents don't realize how distracting. You take your child out to the desert, things are going on, and I'm trying to teach you the basics or make sure that you're safe.
Playing in the dirt or the mud, whatever.
Playing in the dirt, and you have all the things going on.
Yeah.
And we're in Arizona, and there's very few areas that Arizona's growing. So you have to be X amount of distance away from homes and roads. So you come to an indoor shooting range, and once you're checked in and on the range, it's yours.
Awesome. And there's also training classes, and like we were talking about, kids camps or doing a private lesson and having an instructor maybe taking the first steps with your kid, and then you're kind of getting a double whammy. Your child is getting trained correctly from an instructor, and you are also learning how the instructor is teaching your child so that you can continue to do that when you come to the range with them next time. Last question, who is the best shot in the family?
Me. I taught you everything you know, not everything I know.
Oh
you ever heard that before?
Yes, I have. You told me that. It's not hard or scary to introduce your kids into firearms. You just need to know the right way to do it. And thank you for joining me, Dad. I think it provided a lot of good insight of the kids' perspective and the parents' perspective and what to look out for when getting your kids into firearm and talking firearm safety. Don't go anywhere, because I have my little brother here to help me with the tip of the week. Coming up next on Reloaded. Welcome to the tip of the week where I give you the ammo to become better shooters and responsible gun owners. Whether you've been shooting your whole life or getting ready to fire a gun for the first time, these tips are for you. And this week's tip is making the range enjoyable for kids. And to help me with this is my little brother, River. Are you excited? Are you nervous?
Yes.
So, how old are you?
I am 10.
You're 10. What grade are you in?
5th.
5th. When was the first time you shot a gun? Do you remember?
No, I do not remember.
It was about a year ago. Do you remember who you shot a gun with?
My dad.
Dad? And how was that? What was like your favorite part about shooting a gun with Dad?
It was like the shooting part and like being able to like watch someone shoot too, like him shoot it.
Do you remember what target you were aiming at?
I was aiming at like a clown target.
It was like a scary clown target or something like that, but it's super fun and you did a really good job. You know, when there's guns lying around or if Dad's working on a gun or if you're at a friend's house and you see a gun, what do?
First, you make sure it's not aiming at you and then go and tell an adult.
Tell an adult. Do you touch it?
No, you
No?
do not touch it.
What if you're with a friend or like a family member or maybe like a young friend and they say, oh no, don't worry, I can touch it. What do?
You tell them better to go tell an adult so no one gets hurt.
When can you use or touch a firearm?
When you're like practicing shooting or when you're like shooting with one of your parents.
All right, do you want to help me with the tip of the week?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, let's do it. So Dad touched on this a little bit, but eye and ear protection is huge because he's 10, or if you have a smaller child that you're bringing to the range, their hearing is really, really, really strong. And with the loud shot sounds, especially on a public range, their ears are really sensitive. So you want to make sure that you have eye and ear protection that works for them. That doesn't mean the adult eye and ear protection or the hearing protection because this is kind of going to slump over his ears. You want to find something like this. It's eye protection that is fit for kids and ear protection that's fit for kids. So next, be sure you have an appropriate firearm for your child. And that's the best part about going to the range is because they're gonna have rentals and you can try out what firearms work best for your kid. And maybe they're gonna like something that you necessarily don't like. Like I like shooting pistols and you said that you like shooting rifles, right? Why do you like shooting rifles?
Because they're like, it's fun like to go hunting with them and.
Do you feel like you can shoot further targets with rifles than pistols?
Yeah.
Do you get to like rest it on a bench? Or?
Yep.
Yeah? Is that why you like it better?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so trying out different firearms, there are some guns that are heavier than others, and with kids, you definitely have to be more mindful of this. So this firearm, this is a 22, but it's made of steel, so it's really, really heavy for him to hold. So I'm gonna have you hold this real quick. So let's start with your left hand. He's a lefty. Perfect, look at that grip. So feel that. Is that heavy or is it light?
It's heavy.
It's heavy. Do you feel like you could hold that out there for a really long time?
No.
No? So maybe you would want to rest your elbows on the table so that he can have a little bit more control over the gun. Or we can try out this firearm. It's also a 22, so feel this one.
Yeah.
A lot lighter, huh?
Yeah.
Which one would you have more fun with shooting?
This one.
And notice, I didn't even have to remind him to keep his finger off the trigger. He's pointing his firearm in a safe direction. I don't have to remind him of those things because before you go to the range, your kid should know that. Awesome. All right, so we're gonna shoot this one today, okay? You cool with that?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. So we're always gonna point the gun in a safe direction. So down at that target. It has a safety on it. So right now, because the white is showing, it's on safe. Once you get your grip and I load the gun for you, we're gonna point at the target and then flip it down for fire, okay? Got all 10 in there. All right, so it's loaded on safe, so let's get our grip. Perfect, fingers off the trigger. Remember, feet apart. Perfect, I'm gonna flip the safety off. All right, so it's ready to fire. So when you're ready, line up your sights and go for it. There you go. Go for it. Good, dude. Awesome. So take your finger off the trigger. And then what you're gonna do is just rest your arms a little bit because it gets heavy, huh? You ready again? All right, go for it. Good, line up those sights. Good. Get the top of that sight in there and press. Good, right at the bottom. Good, smooth press. There you go. And it locked back, so let's take our finger off the trigger. Let's put the safety on again. Perfect. High five, dude. When you take your kids to the range with you for the first time, make sure you set them up for success. Meaning, you've talked about firearm safety before going to the range and you have equipment that works for them, and pay attention to how they're responding. If you can tell they're not really having a good time, then maybe they're not ready. Or if they're loving it and having an awesome time, then show them a little bit more with the gun. Set them up for success. Tune in next week where we'll see how the media is getting called out for their lies about mass shootings. Then we'll learn a little bit about background checks and have some fun shooting, because what else would we do? Don't forget to like, share, and comment on this video so I can talk 2A with you every week. My name is Paige Rue, and your firearm freedom just got reloaded.